On today's show, Stephen Silas, the angriest we've ever seen him in a postgame presser after the Houston Rockets give up 140 points to the Sacramento Kings and show a concerning lack of effort. But is it too little too late for Silas, right? Where was this level of frustration? Where was this emotion? Where has this been throughout the previous 2.5 years that he has been the Rockets head coach? We're going to unpack the frustrations from this game, some of the struggles from Jalen Green, how he did kind of bounce back a little bit in the second half. All of that and more came up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
The Houston Rockets select Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Jabari Smith Jr.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
Every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
Hey, Houston fans, I am so happy.
You're getting somebody who's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, somebody who's going to come in and compete from day one.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcast, including YouTube, where the comments help us out tremendously. As always, appreciate you for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on the way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for making LOR part of your day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Now, before we dive into Stephen Silas' full post-game presser and just his boiling point frustration, unpacking that, talking about the Rockets' evening against the Sacramento Kings, I do want to say to all of our Turkish Rockets fans, listeners, that my heart goes out to you. Türkiye kalbim seninle. With the tragic earthquake that has taken place, I cannot even imagine whether you have been directly affected or you know somebody that's been affected. Alperen Sengun did share his thoughts, and he is, said that he's working with and orchestrating with other NBA players, other Turkish players, on a way to support his homeland with this whole situation going on. So I do just want to say, keeping you guys in my thoughts, and I suggest you do the same if you're not one of those affected. But let's go ahead and we'll dive into just the angriest we've ever seen Stephen Silas. He was so frustrated in this Rockets postgame presser. We're going to unpack what he had to say and kind of discuss takeaways from this post-game presser, a guy who very much looks like he's coaching for his job and has reached significant levels of frustration, boiling point, whatever you want to call it. We're going to run that back, and then I'll unpack what we see.
What led to them being so open for so many people?
The effort.
Was to close hard, or just even throughout the possession?
It was getting into the body, getting over the screen, being in help, sprinting the closeouts, doing what we're supposed to do, acting as if it doesn't matter. It matters. Disappointing. These are the lessons we have to learn, I guess, and all that stuff, but that's not right. What we did tonight on that floor was not right. It's not right.
Is there any explanation for the inconsistency in the effort? Because there are moments where they play very hard through the course of the entire game.
It's youth. Are we going out there and doing everything that we can possibly do to win the game? Or are we just going out there and playing the game? That's what it is. It's disappointing.
You talked about pride before the game. How disappointing was it to see this after what happened on Saturday?
I mean, they can score. This team can score. They can score. They're right at the top of the league. But just letting guys just line up a wide open threes, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. We've had a stretch of this season, these last couple games, where this is not how we're supposed to play, and it's not doing all the things that we've been talking about all season long. It's not.
The 2 games in Sacramento, there were some similarities with, Lyles coming off the bench and scoring in bunches, and they had some open 3-pointers there as well. But would you characterize this as a regression from that, or more of the same, or what?
More of the same, I guess. More of the same.
Does it seem like the guys aren't communicating with each other on the defensive end?
They're not giving the effort on the defensive end. They're not getting after it like they're supposed to. They're not getting into their man and fighting over and helping each other. They're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Whew. So a lot to kind of unpack here from Stephen Silas. And first thing I want to say is my reaction to this, being in the room 10 feet away from Silas as he's going through this, was that it came across very genuine, but also incredibly forced at the same time. Because he just, personality-wise, he strikes me as somebody who is not, like, this isn't where he's comfortable, right? Like showing this level of frustration and emotion is not usually him, right? And now it almost feels, because of that, it almost feels performative in nature, where you're just like, wait, what he's been one way for 2.5 years, and now he's suddenly showing this kind of frustration and emotion and whatever. And it makes you wonder, right? Like, how is he behind the scenes with the players, right? Like, what is he, if he suddenly turned on this, angry Silas bit with the players after 2.5 years, then what's the reaction going to be like in the locker room, right? You're so used to a guy being kind of, a little bit more chill, whatever, positive vibes, like all that. And obviously we don't know what goes on in behind the scenes in the practices, the shoot-arounds, the walkthroughs. Maybe Stephen Silas is quite a bit more stern than what we're accustomed to seeing when he's behind, in front of the camera, so to speak. But there's been so many reactions to this, right? And people were getting their jokes off, right? Because Silas is, looking down at the table, and I do want to, for all the NBA conspiracy theorists out there, right, saying, oh, he's reading off a script. Those are his coach's notes. Coaches have the notes and the box scores given to them at the end of every game. He brings them up to the table. It's his way to reference how good players did, any notes that he might have had from the game throughout, whatever. It's a very common occurrence. Every single coach in the NBA does it. So stop with the conspiracy theorists. I get it with the NBA scripting joke. Like, it's fun to, poke fun at that. But that's what he was looking at on the table. But at the same time, he also strikes me as somebody who is not comfortable with this level of frustration and delivering a frustrated message, right? He's not eyeing down the media. He's glancing away, and he's frustrated. He's looking up at the ceiling and this, that, and the other. Like, he doesn't strike me as somebody who is comfortable with this type of emotion, right? With not sure how to handle the frustration, the anger that he's feeling. And I sympathize with Silas. This is a tough situation for him to be in. He's basically got a college-age roster, an AAU squad that he's trying to compete with at the NBA level. But effort is inexcusable. I've talked about this before on this very show, that effort is inexcusable. The moment the players stop giving you the proper effort, that is a concern. And I'm sorry, that falls on the coaching staff. Some of that's on the players, sure. Like, the players have to want to try, right? They have to want to do the right things. But after a season filled with so much losing, this is what you start to see. This is the outcome of, okay, well, the effort was there earlier in the season. They were fighting hard every single game for the first about quarter of the way of the season, first third of the season. They were fighting hard. They were getting after it every single game. And then they had their first few bad losses, and then the bad losses started piling up, and then they hit December, and December was just a mess. And now they've navigated all of January, and the losing streak was at its peak. So this team has started to, the message is now falling on deaf ears, it feels like, with this team. And while I sympathize with the situation that Stephen Silas is in, one of the counter arguments I see far too often is Silas was not brought in to coach this group. You know what? I don't care. A good coach should be able to coach any group of basketball players. Now, obviously, there's going to be varying degrees of success with, a group that's a ready-made contender versus a group of young guys, but any coach should be able to coach whatever group of guys if you're a good coach. And right now, we're not seeing this group succeed. We're not even seeing them put forth effort, right? And effort is the bare minimum. Effort is the one spot where you can excuse defensive miscommunications. You can excuse not understanding schemes. You can excuse a broken down play where a guy is not spaced properly, whatever. You cannot excuse effort. And I get it. I get the frustration. I get the spot that Stephen Silas is in, but there's the players themselves are a little bit responsible, but he is also responsible for the way that this group is playing currently. And at this point, I've said it many times already, but it's time for the Rockets. It's time for the front office, and it's time for ownership to go ahead and move on from Stephen Silas. It's not doing anybody any favors. It feels like right now they're just trying to run out the clock, right? There's only so much of the season left, and they're just trying to drag it out and just finish it off and have a clean disconnect in the offseason rather than dealing with firing a coach midseason, the attention that it'll generate, the negative PR, all that. But right now, these back-to-back games, the 153-point loss against OKC, giving up 140 to Sacramento, these are brutal. And this is wearing on the players. It's exhausting for the fans. It's got top to bottom, organizationally, it's a mess. So rip the Band-Aid off. Make it happen. Because at this point, it's just too much. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous at this point. So with that, coming up, I do want to talk about some of the takeaways from the Rockets-Kings game, Jalen Green's night, as well as just other takeaways from the stylistic differences between the Kings and Rockets and some of the things that I kind of noticed while watching this game. We're going to get there, but first, a quick message from our friends over at Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories that usually comes along with it? Then you got to check out Built Bar, because with Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you won't even think that they're good for you. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, first off, every single bar is coated in 100% delicious chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, raspberry, strawberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel. My personal favorite is the coconut brownie chunk, but you really can't go wrong with a single bar on their menu. I don't know how they do it, but it tastes like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And the best part is you can get them online, and I'll tell you how in just a second. But you can also walk into your local Walmart or Sam's Club and go grab a box right off the shelf. So if ordering online is not your cup of tea, cool. Walk into Sam's Club, walk into Walmart, go grab yourself a box, or you can visit Built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at Built.com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. The NBA trade deadline is approaching, and Locked On has you covered. Thursday, February 9th, tune in to Locked On NBA on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern time to hear reaction from the trades that will change the rest of the NBA season. Who's going to become contenders? Who's tanking for a better future? Subscribe to Locked On NBA on YouTube and don't miss a single deal. Now, let's unpack a little bit of why Stephen Silas was so frustrated throughout this game, right? And a lot of it does boil down to there's some effort. There's some serious lack of effort and concerning trends right now with this Rockets team. And again, we talk about it a lot, the rot of losing setting in, some bad tendencies, some bad habits. But you know what? That's also partially caused by very little to no accountability for some of these guys, right? Again, you look up and down this Houston Rockets roster, and there are a bunch of guys that will get playing time regardless of how good or bad they are playing, right? And that's an issue. After the Rockets game against the Thunder, after that first half, Jalen Green's first game back, and Jae'Sean was playing horrendously, I said I would start Ty Washington and Josh Christopher in the second half, because they actually played like they cared. They played, and they were playing well. They played like they cared. They were putting good effort in. They were playing aggressively, all of that, right? They value the minutes that they get. Whereas, and credit to Jae'Sean, he was, having a bad game. Maybe the effort necessarily wasn't as questionable with Jae'Sean, but the issue comes when you've got guys like Jalen. He's going to get his 30-plus minutes a night every single game, regardless, right? Whether he's playing a bad game, good game, doesn't matter. He gets his minutes. Jabari gets his minutes. Sengun has actually been the one guy that's been held to a much higher degree of scrutiny, held to a much higher standard than every other player. As of late, he's gotten his minutes, which has been a nice change of pace. But for the first, half of the season, if Sengun had a bad set of defensive possessions or picked up too many fouls or whatever, then he would get benched. And then Bruno or Garuba would be the one running the show at the 5 spot. And Sengun was getting, 25, 26, 28 minutes a night if he was lucky. So there's an issue where it comes from when these young guys, when these teenagers, when these kids think that, I messed up on defense, I'll get him next time, right? There's no sense of consequences, right? There's no, I'm going to lose playing time. Oh, the coach is going to bench me. Oh, he's going to take away my shot attempts, right? I'm not going to get to touch the ball offensively, whatever. If I'm not playing the best defense, if I'm not locked in, if I'm not engaged, and that's an issue. And we saw that on display here against the Sacramento Kings. We saw bad effort from Jalen Green in the first half. Bad effort from Jabari. Bad effort from Sengun in spots. EG has been mentally checked out forever. Like, EG will lock in occasionally. And that kind of, that also is like, not a catalyst, but that's just another one of the little dominoes, in play here, is the fact that Eric Gordon hasn't been putting forth the best effort, right? He's supposed to be your vet, but he's done. He's sick and tired of the situation, right? The no improvement, all that. Like, EG's been better since the new year, but he still kind of is just going through the motions, right? He's biding his time, trying to see what's going to ultimately happen at the trade deadline. And again, fingers crossed that the Rockets actually somehow make a move and move on from Eric Gordon so that they can, again, start getting more minutes to the guys who do want to be out there, who do want to fight and claw every single possession, right? Guys like Tari Eason, guys like Josh Christopher, guys like Jae'Sean Tate, guys who will go out there and bust their ass every minute that they're on the court. Because again, effort is the one thing that you cannot excuse for a young team. A young team should be giving maximum effort every single possession that they are out there on the floor. And here against Sacramento, I mean, the Rockets got destroyed on like back cuts. They got destroyed in transition. They got destroyed defensively on made buckets. They would make a shot and somehow manage to still not get back and set their defense properly in the half court. That is just inexcusable. That's lack of effort. That's lack of want to. The ease with which the Sacramento Kings were getting their shots, either by the Rockets not rotating, not closing out on guys, over helping, closing out poorly, and just closing out and immediately getting blown by, and then you're setting up the guy behind you to get scored on. All of that. And then also just not bodying up, not manning up to the Kings, right? Like, I do want to give him his flowers, but I got to talk about the bad before I talk about the good with Jalen Green. Jalen Green was bad in the first half of this game. He was struggling offensively, and then on defense, he was getting absolutely bulldozed and bodied by De'Aaron Fox. Now, I pointed out the fact during the game that De'Aaron Fox is listed at 185, Jalen Green is listed at 178, and I saw a couple people say like, oh, well, weight doesn't equate strength. I don't care. It's not like De'Aaron Fox is a mountain of a human and he's just bulldozing Jalen. It's not like LeBron versus Jalen, right? I don't expect Jalen to be able to hold his own against anybody that's 20 plus pounds more than him, right? Of course he's going to get bodied by somebody like that. De'Aaron Fox and Jalen are basically the same build is the issue. And there were two subsequent possessions that really, rustled my jimmies, if you will. It was the end of the first half. And back-to-back drives. De'Aaron Fox drives the ball in and just completely bodies Jalen Green off him, right? Dips the shoulder, gets his chest in, gets right into Jalen's chest, and Jalen just goes flying, right? Just like a bowling ball knocking down pins. And Jalen, zero resistance, zero ability to stand his ground and body up to De'Aaron Fox. And that's just lack of, like, you got to want to play defense, right? Yeah, there's going to be times when you're mismatched. Yeah, there's going to be times when there's other guys that are bigger, stronger, taller, faster, whatever, better than you. But if you just try, if you just put forth better effort, defense is all about effort, right? If you're not putting forth the effort, of course you're going to be bad. Of course you're going to get beat. Of course the other team is going to look fantastic against you, right? Because you're just not trying hard enough. You're not doing all the little things that you have to do to win a basketball game. Credit to what Stephen Silas said, right? Are they going out there and just playing the game, or are they going out there doing everything that they can do to win the game? And it feels like this team is very much just going through the motions at times, and that they've kind of checked out a little bit, and that's on coaching, right? I don't care. You got to keep the guys bought in. You got to find a way to keep that message strong and have guys continuing to play hard for you. The moment guys stop playing hard for you, the moment you lose that locker room, you are done as a coach, right? You cannot lose the locker room. And it feels like Silas is at that point where he may have lost the Rockets locker room, honestly. But I will say credit to Jalen Green, credit to maybe whatever Stephen Silas said at halftime, tearing into the guys, whatever it looked like, however, if he was banging on tables at halftime too, punching lockers, whatever's going on at halftime. Because Jalen Green had a much better second half. He finished the game, 27 points, 10 of 21 shooting, 5 of 11 from 3. He went 5 of 8 in that third quarter, had 14 points. Was a bit quiet in the fourth, but the fourth was, the Kings basically ran away with it, so it's, But the Rockets were much better in that third quarter. They scored 40 points. They turned it on in the third quarter. Things looked a lot more cohesive. Alperen Sengun was fantastic. I'll talk about him a little bit in the third segment. But there was also a moment in the third quarter where Jalen, after having gotten bodied by De'Aaron Fox in the first half, stood his ground against De'Aaron Fox and drew an offensive foul. And I was like, in my seat, I'm like, yes, that is the effort. That is how you fight on defense, right? That is how you put your body on the line and you go out there and you give it your all on defense and you will make things happen, right? Look, Jae'Sean Tate puts his body on the line defensively, right? Gives his all every single possession. Garrison Matthews, not the best defender, right? He whatever. He goes out there and he gets his butt kicked on defense sometimes, but he takes charges. He puts in the effort, right? Tari Eason puts in the effort, right? You got guys that are out there putting in the effort. And as long as you're putting in the effort, whatever. If you put in your max amount of effort and you still get beat, so be it. There are probably 25 plus teams in the NBA that are more talented, better skilled, older, whatever than the Rockets are. And the Rockets are not favorites going into like any single matchup. Every single night, they're the underdogs. And every single night, they got to go out there. And sometimes you just got to fight harder to give yourself a chance to be in these games, right? Otherwise, if you just roll over, if you're not putting forth the effort, then of course you're going to get blown out. Of course you're going to give up 153. Of course you're going to give up 140. So I did like what I saw out of Jalen Green in the second half. I liked that he responded, and I liked that the Rockets as a team kind of responded in that third quarter. They still gave up way too many points. After giving up a ton of points in the first half and only scoring 48 themselves, you can't exactly come back and win the third quarter plus 6, 40-34, and expect to be like, yeah, we're back in the game, But it was at least a step in the right direction, and why can't we see them play like that from the jump? Why are these guys not ready to play that level from tip-off? Why do they come out with lackluster energy? Why do they come out like the game is not on the line the moment it starts? Why do they start playing hard in the third quarter? Or why do they wait until the end of the game to start playing hard? What is it? Is it the players? Is it coaching? Is it a little bit of both? I think it's a little bit of both. Coming up, I do want to share more thoughts from this game. I want to talk about Alperen Sengun, his solid play in the third quarter, especially facilitating the basketball. More concern from Jabari Smith Jr. And also one stylistic difference that I really noticed between the Rockets and the Kings, and this bleeds back into coaching. And I want to talk about that, but first, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Next game, how about Jalen Green to score more than 23.5 points? What about Tari Eason to have more than 6.5 rebounds? How about Alperen Sengun to have less than 7.5 assists? What about Jabari Smith Jr. to have less than 3.5 3-pointers made? So what is PrizePicks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you for everything. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. Best part, first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. I meant to include this last segment, but I did think in the third quarter, including the turned up level of effort by the Rockets, I also thought Jalen Green specifically, his decisiveness, right? His decision making was a lot better in that third quarter, understanding when to attack, how to play. If the Kings were going to switch a pick, switch defenders, whatever, taking that split moment, if they were going to go under a screen, whatever, pulling from three, just having those opportunities where he was a little bit more hesitant in the first half. And I do think that some of the decision making by the Rockets, right, they do not make crisp, quick decisions, and that leads to a lot of what we ultimately see them struggling with offensively. I harped on their defense, right? They gave up, backdoor cuts, effort, all that. Defense is so much just about effort. But then offensively, right? In this game, Alperen Sengun dealt 5 dimes in the third quarter after only 1 assist throughout the entire first half. And it was because they kind of got back into, right, the ball was moving. They were sharing the basketball quite a bit better. They were making better decisions out of the pick and roll. They were getting the ball to the middle of the floor. And here was like I almost, screamed it from the rooftops. There was a play that they ran with Alp at the elbow and Jalen Green cut going around Alperen Sengun at the elbow towards the basket, and Alp delivered him a bounce pass on the money, and Jalen went up, got fouled, got to the free throw line. But it's moments like that where I just wonder why the Rockets do not do more of that offensively, right? So much of what the Rockets do, they have to pull teeth for offensively, right? And I hate subscribing to the notion that, the team would probably buy in and play harder on defense if they were a bit more engaged or if they were a bit more successful offensively. But that's probably true with a group of young guys, right? We see it. Look, Jabari, when he's involved offensively, guess what? He plays harder on defense. Alp, when he's got it going offensively, he plays harder on defense. Jalen, when he's got it going offensively, he plays harder on defense. So how do you get them to play harder on defense? Make their lives a little bit easier on offense, right? Find easier ways for them to score the ball offensively, right? Yes, they're still going to miss shots. Yes, they're a bad shooting team right now. But so much of what the Rockets do offensively feels like pulling teeth. It's just exhausting to watch. The number of times we saw Jalen Green, not once, but twice in this game, decide to isolate. I think the first one was on Davion Mitchell, who always has Jalen Green in hell. And then the second one was actually on De'Aaron Fox, who is not De'Aaron Fox is not a fantastic defender, right? He's not a Davion Mitchell. He's not a lockdown, I'm going to, have you in Rikers on defense. That's not who De'Aaron Fox is. Both times Jalen Green, resorted to the isolation play and got blocked on 2 separate occasions, right? And part of that is because the Rockets do so little to make life easier for themselves offensively, right? They've very little motion, no cutting, no off-ball movement. Everything turns into, it's a high screen and roll. It's trying to get somebody downhill. It is a very, very predictable offense. And here's the worst part is there's so many possessions where Jalen just decides to use the screen and then do nothing with it. He'll use the screen and then he doesn't turn the Jets on. He'll use the screen and then kind of casually reset and then it's an ISO. And that's on Jalen. That's not a coaching issue. That's hey, why are you not capitalizing on this? Why are you not creating an advantage, right? The schemes, the actions, the picks, all of that are designed to create some type of an offensive advantage, right? Either you get the ball handler going downhill or you set a screen off the ball and you get a player cutting so that his defender is lagging behind him and you deliver the pass. Everything NBA offenses do are geared to generate an advantage. And it very much feels like the Rockets rarely, if ever, generate an advantage offensively, right? A lot of the time, it feels like their offense boils down to Jalen is really super uber talented and he's a crazy athlete and he's going to hit some tough shots. Same thing with Kevin when he's healthy and on the floor. Same thing with Alp when he backs down a guy, right? And Alp is kind of an offense unto himself because when he starts posting up guys down low, the defense will usually collapse on him, right? The defense will collapse, and then when the defense collapses, that gets the defense in rotation. He kicks the ball out, cool. And then suddenly you have motion, right? Suddenly you're swinging the ball around, and you can generate an open shot that way. But when Jalen is in the pick and roll and tries to get going downhill and either collapses the defense and doesn't make the kick out pass or settles for those mid-range shots or uses the screen and then doesn't actually do anything with it, uses the screen and then kind of just resets a little bit, doesn't immediately, go for the burst move and get downhill, you get stagnant offense and it looks really bad. But then on the flip side, you look at what the Sacramento Kings do. And some of this is obviously playing against the Rockets, who are a bad defensive team, and you couple that with bad effort, and it looked even worse. But when you watch what the Sacramento Kings do, when you watch how they screen, when you watch how guys move without the basketball, when you watch how guys cut backdoor, all of that, right? So many of their buckets are easy buckets, are wide open buckets, are shots that are just generated. And they do such a great job. They're one of the best offenses in the NBA. Top 5 offense top 5 last I checked. Number 3 specifically last time I looked at it. But they set a screen, and their screen setters actually set hard screens, right? Sabonis will set a brick wall of a screen, right? Harrison Barnes will set a hard screen. Chimezie Metu will set a hard screen and open up a shooter, right? How often do you watch Kevin Huerter and he's just dancing around a screen? Or Keegan Murray, who was unstoppable in this game. Shout out to Keegan Murray, 30 points on 11 of 17 shooting. He looked fantastic in this game against the Rockets. Could not miss from downtown. 8 of 12 shooting from three-point range. And they do so much to create these opportunities, right? Whereas the Rockets, they'll set, Alp will kind of set a screen and then kind of roll, and his heart's not all the way in the screen. Or Jabari will set like a brush screen and barely make contact with the guy and then roll down to the corner. Or it feels like the Rockets, again, what Stephen Silas said, I think rings true. It feels like, are they going out there doing everything they can to win the game, or are they going out there to just play the game? And it very much feels like guys are kind of at this point going through the motions, not putting their best foot forward. And you know what? When that happens, there needs to be consequences. There needs to be a way for Stephen Silas to sit these guys down and say, you know what? All right, cool. You guys aren't playing the way that I want you to play. You're not putting forth the right effort. Awesome. You know what? Jabari, Sengun, Eric, Jalen, whatever, all y'all, you're all benched. You're all coming off the bench next game. I'm starting the bench guys, because at least the bench guys play hard, right? And guess what? That's kind of what we saw in the absence when the Rockets were playing without Jalen and without Alpe. Alpe does play hard. But even Alpe has moments where he's he's frustrated about a foul call, or he goes up and, misses a shot, or whatever. And then he's lagging back in transition. And there was a distinct moment in this game against the Kings where he turned the ball over on offense. Stephen Silas threw his hands down, super frustrated, and then Alpe didn't get back defensively and gave up an open bucket. So there's moments like that, right? Nobody is immune. Nobody should be immune to the accountability, feature of this roster, right? There should be a level of, if I mess up, I might not actually get to play, right? And that's what we saw when John Lucas was coaching the team, right? KJ Martin messed up early. Guess what? KJ Martin sat the entire first half, and he didn't come back in until a few minutes left in the half. And then guess what? He had a monster second half. It very much feels like these young guys need somebody to hold them accountable. And right now, that guy is no longer, I don't know if maybe it could have been Stephen Silas if he had been a different level of aggressive early on. Maybe if he had shown this level of emotion and frustration and demanded more from his guys earlier on. But right now, it's not working. The ship has sailed. It's too little too late. And the Rockets would be best served to move on from it sooner rather than trying to ride out the clock and make it to this offseason. So with that, those are final thoughts from this Rockets-Kings game. Also, I will say, I guess we're just never, if Jae'Sean Tate's healthy, then both Ty Washington and Daishen Nix are just out of the rotation. But it's a shame that we're not getting to see Ty Washington get at least some minutes on a nightly basis. I know that Silas is probably going with the roster of the 8 guys who he thinks is going to be able to win him a game. Bruno Fernando getting just 10 minutes. Tari, Jae'Sean, and Josh Christopher kind of being the three main guys off the Rockets bench. Oh, you know what? I wanted to chime this in. I'm all caught up on the frustration from this game. The refs were just awful in this game. I hate blaming the refs. I hate playing the blame the refs game. It's the worst. I want this team to play good basketball, and then you play to the best of your ability, and then you can blame the refs afterwards. The Rockets do not rarely, if ever, play to the best of their ability to where I feel comfortable blaming the refs for some of their shortcomings. But so many blown calls in this game. Jabari goes up and gets fouled clearly by Kevin Huerter on the hand, and no call. Jalen Green in transition. De'Aaron Fox grabs Jalen's entire forearm, and they rule it a ball knocked off Jalen's thigh, right? LP down low, getting physical, getting fouled, no calls. Like it's officiating is usually pretty bad. I feel like this is the worst season of NBA officiating that I've ever been witness to, right? So, and this is not just a Rockets thing. This is league wide. Officiating has been terrible this season. And it's because, you know what? Guess what? Just like the Rockets clearly have no accountability for their poor play, the officials have no accountability for their poor performances, right? Officials will blow a call and they don't get fined, they don't get suspended. Nope, it's just, oh, sorry, well, we're not gonna be able to sleep well tonight because we blew a few calls in a crucial game. Our bad. We'll be better next time. That's how the officials respond, right? You get this, you get a puff piece from the official NBA Twitter account where it's like, hey, we're really sorry. We didn't mean to blow those calls. We'll be better next time. What? That's not accountability. That is fake, just whatever, puff piece. It does nothing. It's lip service is what it is. So sorry, I had to get that frustration off my chest. I don't even know. I had it in my notes and I almost skipped over the bad officiating in this Rockets Kings game. Not that it probably wouldn't have made a difference is the issue because the Rockets were playing so poorly on the defensive end, but I had to at least share my thoughts on that. So with that, that's going to do it for today's episode. As always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Odyssey app, free and available on all podcast platforms. We're also available on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search Locked on Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.